May as well go through training since they're offering it. Gives us time to get a feel for the controls before we get into the front lines. This boot camp is pretty self-explanatory. We go to each firing range and test things out a little. Sure, there have been more interesting training bits and games over the years, but sometimes something this basic is all you need. Besides, some bits are strangely hilarious. Like they tell us to pull the trigger and we apparently have to find out on our own how to aim in the first piece of training. Really? A bazooka this early on in training? We aren't even a minute in and we're being given an anti-tank weapon, and we're not even being told how to aim it yet. If you feel the need to tell people that pulling the very obvious trigger will shoot the gun, then you need to tell them how to aim as well. As a side note, I'm kind of surprised that the explosion that took out so many barrels didn't even scratch the cardboard infantry guy right next to the blast. Apparently our ammo replenishes itself somehow in this boot camp. Okay, what piece of the army are we gonna test out next? There's plenty of choices. This is probably one of the most lax boot camps I've ever seen. Granted, it's not like we're gonna get full metal jacket levels of cussing and trauma in an N64 game that seems like it was designed for a wide audience. Though it apparently got a teen rating for being violent. I kinda wanna chuckle at that rating. And I remember that you can literally melt your enemies into a pile of goo on the ground. I don't care how bad the graphics may seem, when liquefying our enemies is a legitimate option. Yeah, I have to agree that this game ain't getting an E rating. Anyway, enough playing around with this M16, which doesn't seem to have an automatic fire or burst option for now. Let's move on to the next weapon. Your generic sniper rifle. You can zoom in and out, and like all the guns in this game, you don't need to reload for some reason. It can instantly kill your average tan grunt with a single shot regardless of where the bullet lands. Now, let's move on to the next gun. Ah yes, the flamethrower. These things can really bring on the pain, and they have surprisingly good range and spread. Still, not that likely to use it against the enemy since it's typically faster and more efficient to shoot them with our standard rifle. More humane, too. Now, since this is boot camp, we have unlimited ammo for all our weapons, but in the field you can see how quickly the flamethrower can get drained. And it's not like the ammo for this thing grows on trees. Speaking of trees, that's not a bad burning effect for something made in 1999. Let's take out this last batch of explosive barrels before we go to the next piece of the boot camp. We've probably used the flamethrower here more than we'll use it throughout the rest of the game. The shotgun here doesn't quite work like shotguns in most games. The damn thing has the accuracy of a musket, so you gotta be pretty close to hit anything. However, you don't have to worry about much of the pellets missing the target. The shotgun's shells act like one solid slug, so if you hit an enemy, they'll feel the pain. The maximum amount of pain. Though this means you won't be able to hit multiple enemies with a single shot. Anyway, that seems to be all for this section of the camp, so let's move on. I don't know what's stranger, the fact that activating the switch is the same button for jumping, or the fact that Colonel Grimm is here to see a sergeant go through an obstacle course. Our biggest enemy in this course is the camera. It's not nearly as maneuverable as the sergeant here. Okay, not much of a penalty for getting into the mud. Okay, why was there no penalty for being in the mud at all that time? Oh, now that was just cheap. Good thing there aren't too many sharp turns in this course, otherwise this would be insane. Well, that was easy enough. Understandable, since we're trying to learn how everything works in this game, not trying to test our limits just yet. Now, what are our choices? I'm kinda surprised the bazooka wasn't in this section. Now, the TNT has quite a strong punch. Thankfully, they gave a very generous timer because it takes quite a bit for Sarge here to turn around. Now let's get out of the blast zone and see the fireworks. It probably would have looked more impressive if we'd been able to set it up next to something like a tank instead of the same explosive barrels we've seen so far. But I'd say this gives a good idea. Okay! It ruined that tower from how far off? That smoke is definitely not a good indicator of the blast radius. Let's move on to the grenades. Targeting for these things makes them awkward to use in a hurry, but easy to aim. Fire in the hole! Was kinda hoping to save those barrels for the next grenade. Oh well. I really wish they made the blast radius on these explosives more clear. Not that I'm likely to set any of these things off when we're right next to them, if I can help it. The mortar doesn't work that differently from the grenades. It's got a longer range, and the minimum range makes sure the only way you're gonna hurt yourself is if you start running towards the target right after making the shot. It's also got a good deal more bite to it. Hard to judge right now though, since, well, these targets go down regardless of what you shot them with. The only difference is that explosives remove everything but the shoes on the cardboard infantry targets. I'm not entirely sure what happened to that cardboard tank back there. Now to take up a seldom used friend, the Minesweeper. I can't think offhand of anything other than army men where you got minesweepers. Though sweep is probably the wrong word to use. All it does is let you see nearby mines so you can avoid them. There's nothing you can do to remove those mines except for maybe setting off some other explosives near them. Since they don't go anywhere and you aren't likely to get into a fierce gunfight in the middle of a minefield in the N64 version of this game, you can avoid them at your leisure. They're really more of a speed bump that requires a certain piece of equipment rather than a major hazard. Yeah, I'd say that's enough of a showcase for the Minesweeper. Let's get moving to the next section of the boot camp. I'm surprised we don't see anyone else in this camp. Well, other than the Colonel, of course. Sure, they're probably going to have to reset or replace these targets, but it just seems strange that we're the only one really training here. The grenade launcher is kind of an iffy weapon. It's better suited for closer targets. Sure, technically you can hit distant enemies with it, but you really have to know how to angle it if you want it to land where you want. The bazooka and the mortar are much better at taking down armored enemies at a distance. Damn, I was hoping to get those barrels a little quicker. You see, it's not that it's a horrible weapon, it's just not as well suited. Live fire course? Why am I suddenly feeling nervous? What? Oh, hell no. Don't tell me me we put prisoners of war in training camps like this. I don't care if the Tans started this war. There are some things you just don't do. And they've given the prisoners weapons and ammo to shoot at us. I'm amazed these Tans haven't found a way to escape or make us pay for this. They're just standing in all the right spots politely, as if asking to die. Okay, probably someone to the right, but let's deal with that guy on the platform first. The hell? I'm not sure what's giving me more trouble here. Well, not too accurate auto-aim or an iffy hitbox for that platform. More likely the hitbox. The auto-aim in this game is actually pretty good. That noise. Don't tell me they've got a tank. This place is ridiculous enough without that. Can't really tell where that noise is coming from. Either my headphones are broken or this game doesn't handle sound direction that well. Oh god. They actually have a patrolling Tan tank. Sure, we have more than enough firepower to take it down, but how? Why? Guess I'm just taking things too seriously again. Oh, by the way, what kind of weird hitboxes do these platforms have? We'd better not have this kind of trouble when we get into the actual game. There. That was easy. So tanks go down in 2 bazooka shots, and I didn't see any kind of machine gun on them. They should certainly be easier to deal with than panzers. Okay, at first I was afraid I'd get blasted. Now I'm curious just how bad their awareness is. Seriously, shooting at a guy from point blank and he doesn't even notice me until I start hitting him? I'm probably going to regret this, but may as well see what the flamethrower does to live targets. Yeah, not a practical weapon at all. Still, the animation for it does a good job of making me feel a little guilty. At the end of this training, I'll probably add a bit from my PlayStation 1 recording of the game to see if they pulled the animation better. Okay, who the hell's shooting me? I'm too used to tracking where enemies are by the sound. Going to have to get used to doing it by sight again. Trying to use a shotgun from all the way over there? I would have expected the bastard to try running up to us if he had a short-range weapon, not try to shoot us from a distance his gun is near worthless in. Ah, there's the next target. Goodbye! He'd probably have been a good deal more threatening if he had a sniper rifle.
Good to go.
Here's hoping we don't face too many snipers in this game. It'd be all too easy for us to be torn to shreds that way. Okay, this game really wasn't designed for precision platforming. Not only is there a very noticeable delay when you actually jump as you're running, the camera fights you every bit of the way. Anyway, I think we've seen as much as there is to see in boot camp and are perfectly ready to fight against the Tans. And based on the suddenly triumphant music, we're close to finished with this live fire course. Yep, very definitely the end. Just have to get that gate open. Okay, how did the Colonel get here before us? I certainly didn't hear a helicopter. Am I supposed to be proud of killing 14 prisoners?